G'day, Paul. We are back on another Friday for This Week in E-Commerce with Mal and Paul. How are you, mate?
Good, yeah. We're punctual this time as well. We're getting it out on time, and I'm big on punctuality. So I'm good. How you going?
I'm doing really well. It's been a great week. It's been a really, really good week. So, just delivering really good work, great results, some awesome conversations with different retailers and vendors. And the weather was kind of good for a couple of days this week. It's crap now, but we had two really good days this week.
Yeah, Sydney was good as well, and you're right. It was a good week, and big shout out to Julie Mathers for the very kind words she said on Mark Burris's podcast about our agency, Ecom Nation. So yeah, that was a really good moment, I thought.
It was very humbling to hear those words from Julie. And Paul, I can smell the rich mahogany in your in your office.
Yeah, rich mahogany. You just caught me after doing 1,000 push-ups as well, Mal. So my usual 1,000 on a Friday.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Going straight into it. It's been a big week, as always. Like every week's been pretty huge. But a couple of headlines. It's earnings season, which, as everyone knows, is one of my favorite times of the year, when all the big companies report how much money they've made and what that does to their shares. And the big one this week, after Facebook's or Meta's last week, was Apple. Like, even though they reported $81.8 billion in revenue, which was above target, fantastic. A lot of that was driven by a huge increase in their services division. So that's Apple TV and Apple, all the Apple services which you sign up to. They're claiming now 1 billion subscribers for that, which is not a billion subscribers, like 100 million subscribers. Sorry, my mouse is going a bit crazy there, but it was a large number. But the most interesting things. So it was 1 billion paying subscribers. I was right.
That's ridiculous.
1 billion paying subscribers. You got to think about that in terms of like your MRR, your monthly recurring revenue.
Not bad.
Everyone's paying $2 maybe for the minimum upgrade to get extra storage in their iPhone. That's $2 billion. And unlike the App Store, no one's taking 30% of that.
That's outrageous and good on them.
Yeah,
geez, they've got that stitched up.
It's insane. It's insane. But $81.8 billion, but a decline in iPhone sales, which is interesting. Which unexpected given the economic climate we're in. The last 12 months has a little bit rocky, but seeing that number continue to go down, do you think Apple's going out of fashion? Do you think that more people are switching to Samsung, or is this just more a reflection of the market?
Well, you know what I think about Apple. People are finally listening to me.
What kind of phone do you have?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm part of the problem. We met on this a few months ago and saw, didn't they? They had layoffs.
They did
in their retail division, and so now that starts to add up a bit, doesn't it? iPhone obviously accounts for a large portion of, I assume, why people go into a retail store. So it's funny, isn't it? Like we may have even said at the time, when you see layoffs at a company, something's up, right? It's something is generally not great. And now what we're seeing is the not great. And it just shows to me that that nobody's infallible. There's it happens to all of us, and we've got to pivot. Our iPhone's becoming uncool. I'm the wrong person to ask about what's cool in technology, but you certainly see them around a lot. But I don't know. What I would be interested to see where that market share has gone. I don't know if there's any data around that yet.
I don't think we've seen anything on that yet. Look, for me, like Apple as a brand, I think is pretty much unassailable. Like they would have to be like the top 3 brands in the world. To me, they're number one, and they're just a case study in branding and what it means and how people identify with being an Apple customer. And they look to Apple to solve all their tech problems, in this really beautiful, elegant way. If you look around my desk, I have no less than 4 Apple devices staring back at me right now. So as a brand, I can't see this affecting their brand, but I think it's just more a shift in terms of how people are buying phones now. That with a cooler economy, less discretionary income available, people are now thinking, okay, well, maybe I don't need to upgrade my phone every year or every 2 years. I previously was on I still am on the 2-year upgrade cycle. Every second model, I'll go and get the second model. And I think a lot of people have been like that. But now people are maybe starting to think, oh, maybe I need to kind of like extend the life of this as well. But that also ties in with the fact that that are we also starting to think more sustainably? Are we actually starting to think that why am I getting rid of this device after 2 years? Now that people are more knowledgeable about what goes into all of them, the nickel, the precious, the rare earth metals, things like that, which are required to make a phone, are also incredibly damaging to the environment. So, is it a bad thing? I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if people are buying fewer phones. It means that we're mining less of Mother Earth's resources. But so I don't see that this being a reflection of the fact that iPhones are uncool. I see it more of as a change in consumer behavior.
If I had to guess, and I hate guessing because it's just pointless, but if I had to guess, you would think that it's a softening economy and people are probably not upgrading right now because they're not cheap. They're not an essential purchase. Like the iPhone that I've got, I don't even know what it is, but it's, at the end of the day, like when interest rates are high and consumer confidence is low, you do watch your pennies. So it just could be that. If I had to guess, I would struggle to believe it's the environmental factor yet. Like I think that's still a nice concept, but I'm just not seeing that wash through yet. But if I had, and maybe it's not Samsung picking up market share. I would guess that it's people just not dropping the 1,500 on a new phone. That's only an assumption, but it's. I think, Mal, it's an important thing to remember that there's risk associated to attaching yourself. We know retailers who sell products for Apple. There's risk there when you have all your eggs in one basket as well, and it'll be interesting to check your purchase frequency if you're one of those brands that sell Apple products or things that go with Apple products. But that for me has always also been a bit of a risk. There's a lot of companies that just sell stuff to go with Apple or to go with iPhone. So maybe a time to think about diversifying that product strategy a little bit as well.
Absolutely. I think we talk about diversification quite a lot, not being too beholden to just one product. And as a business, you do need to de-risk. You need to have, different products, different categories, which can pick up the slack in case something goes out of fashion, or demand softens for one particular thing, or you just can't get it in stock. You kind of need to have that backup there in terms of other products. Speaking of backup, one thing which has very much been in vogue the last few years, and I just don't know why, is Baby Bunting have launched an online marketplace, joining Bunnings with a marketplace, every brand on earth with a marketplace, Woolworths with a marketplace. Like so many brands have just decided that, particularly the big brands have just gone, great, you know what, we're going to launch a marketplace. But the difference though is that their marketplace seems to actually be a lot more focused. It seems to be just focused on babies and kids products.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I like that it's focused, and why wouldn't you focus? That's a massive category, right? I don't know how big the global, market size for baby stuff is, but browsing Amazon yesterday, as I like to do, one of the trending products was funny baby shirts. So I like to see what's trending on Amazon. So it's a massive category, and we've both worked in that space before, and it's huge. So if you are going to focus, and it was only a matter of time, I think. We heard about this a little while ago that it was on the cards, and I don't know. Marketplaces are Australia's a funny market for marketplaces because there's a lot now, and as a retailer, there's two schools of thought. I'm picturing Doran now from Cage Electronic, who's going to say, sell on them all, Paul. And I like that. That's just like, he's just sell on more. And he believes that the incremental benefit is amazing. And then there's the others who you sort of think, well, you're selling to your biggest competitor. Are you ever going to, should you stop? And I'm actually always advocating for brands to, at some point in their life, just turn your marketplaces off and see what happens to your online stores. Because we're a small country. 28 million, 30 million.
Yeah.
It's not the US, so I don't know. I don't feel funny about it. Like, I'm all for marketplaces, particularly growing a brand and so on. And I'm looking obviously now at a retailer perspective and less about what Baby Bunting are doing. But from their point of view, it makes sense. They'll probably knock it out of the park, and it would be interesting to see how it goes. I think personally, what I think is interesting is the peer-to-peer model. I don't know if they're doing that, probably not, but like the Designer X model, which I really love. Just knowing that what's a product, Mal, that absolutely you'll grow out of in 2 years. It's baby stuff.
Clothes, yeah. Yeah.
And also prams and stuff, and they're big and they're bulky. And
I think a lot of that happens right now in Facebook marketplaces. I know that you and I, like we both have multiple children. I have several things which have been bought on marketplace because people run out of it. People grow out of it, so it's just cheaper just to buy that $100 pram instead of getting the $800 brand new one. Particularly if it's just someone who's their kids just outgrown it, it's perfectly fine. It's much cheaper. So I think if for Baby Bunting being able to do that, they can own more of the marketplace. But I just want to circle back to your point before about from the retailer perspective. And I look at it as well from like a brand, as a brand, like what are you trying to do? Whether a marketplace actually fits into what your business strategy is. The problem with marketplaces for me is that if you're trying to build a brand, a marketplace isn't the place to do it because you lose control of your brand. You're just there with everything else. And in some ways, if it's the wrong marketplace, it can actually cheapen your brand. It can actually diminish, the impact of what you're trying to build. So I would caution anyone who's thinking about going to marketplaces to really think about, is your product actually differentiated? Is it differentiated? Is it unique? Is it something which you're trying to create a brand and a moat around that? If it is, I'd probably say don't do a marketplace. But if your product is very commoditized, like you're selling, I don't know, just like, kids beds, like basic simple kids beds, then sure, by all means, go on a marketplace where people aren't really looking for that differentiation.
I agree 100%. And I can understand why retailers do it. The revenue is probably better off, particularly in the early days. But you're right. Part of keeping that, we talk about scarcity a lot, and part of keeping that value is also sometimes not saturating the market. There is I'm a big believer in controlling supply as one of the levers to increasing value. We can't always control demand. We try, we tweak our marketing and so on, and always look for a better ROAS. So we can control supply. And so just something to think about for brands to actually pull back supply a little bit at times, pull back distribution a little bit at times, and not have your product everywhere. Keep it a little bit special, a little bit scarce. But anyway, that's a decision for brands, and there's a commercial reality there as well. So I understand that, but you got to think hard about marketplaces.
Absolutely. Now, moving on to our last story, which we're going to cover off, is a recent report from Inside Retail, which shows that Gen Zs now have attention spans of 8 seconds or less. I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I will 100% back that up. Their attention span is definitely extraordinarily short. Even just walking down the hallway, my son gets distracted. He's making his toast and he gets distracted. And I think about, how do you get attention now? And you look at the rise of TikTok, you look at Reels, you look at what social media has done and how much time we're spending on that. It's an attention economy, and it's all about stealing our attention and just trying to steal all these little moments of our time and remove our focus from things. And we're kind of creating this bit of an ADD, economy where we're just jumping from one thing to another. So as a brand now, I think about how do you break through that noise if people are just constantly switching from one thing to another. Like, yes, there's still great brands which come up, but you look at, for instance, Prime Energy, Jake Paul or Logan Paul, I can't remember which one, their new product, which they launched. I don't think this product's going to be around in 3 years' time. They're just doing it. There's going to be a craze around it. People go nuts for it, and they'll forget about it and move on to the next one. So is that the way we need to build brands now? Is this the way we need to build our retail businesses now? Just to look at capitalizing on a trend, jumping into it, and then getting out of it, and just being ready to just get out of it and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, isn't it? I don't know. I'm not going to delve into the psychology of why the attention spans are shorter. I assume that it's, something related to distractions and technology and whatever. But you're right. Like, even I noticed, I have a TikTok account that I've never logged into, Waddy Ecommerce, for anyone wanting to follow it. And I post on it I post on it through scheduling and whatever. I logged into the app for the first time and it hit me like a ton of bricks. There was no navigating. It was just bang. There's stuff playing in your face, full screen. And there was no easing your way into it. Even, at least with Instagram, you can scroll and I don't know, you've got a bit of time to absorb stuff and a bit of control. And then thinking back to a good old fashioned LinkedIn post where you have to write stuff and think about it. I think, you know, for me, it's all about knowing your audience, and that, you know, that generation is pretty challenging to market to, I think. And you're right; they do move on to things really quickly. There's no doubt. Like, I think we would see it as well. Some brands are no point advertising on TikTok. Others just have to be absolutely dominate on TikTok. It's a different creators, different sort of content. It's got to get straight to the point. But in general, I would say that people are less patient. Bounce rates are typically 45, 55%. We know that. Like, we know people they'll browse your site for a minute if they're on the site, if they don't bounce. And most of them will bounce, or 30% will bounce. So we know that we have no time. And that's why I'm a big fan of just getting to the point. And even also, you know, we talk about this as well, just starting things, like just start, like just make a start, get something out there, get something accessible to people, rather than worrying about building it perfectly and this amazing journey that people not even going to click on. People want to click once or twice and then they want to be out of there. Look at Amazon, right? The last thing I bought on Amazon, I didn't click anything, and I slid on something and I was like, I just bought something. It is just getting faster and faster and easier and easier. And the thing is, they're Gen Z or whatever we call them, right? That's them now. But soon, Mal, we'll be 60. Those guys will be our age. And then what's coming after them? So we've got to evolve, whether we like it or not. We've got to. But on a positive, and that is a positive, but on a positive note, that's also why I believe e-commerce has got to be more than 50% of total retail in 10 years. Because look at those guys. They're not going to go to a mall in 10 years. They want everything now. So on one hand, I if anyone's listening to this wondering if it's too late, it's not too late. Get into it. Get into e-commerce. But on the other hand, it's moving fast, and we've got to somehow stay relevant as brands and communicators.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in terms of like websites even as well, so many homepages in particular, there's so much fluff, on them. You've got 3 seconds or less to actually convince someone why they should hang around, particularly if you're spending a lot of money on your paid advertising and you're sending people straight to your homepage, and your homepage is talking about your latest drop, which you've done, but they have no idea about your brand. That to me has never really made sense. I'm a big fan of sending people to bespoke landing pages, which really tell the story of your brand. So when you're reaching that new customer, you can actually give them a really targeted message, which is about why you're great, why look at my brand over another brand, rather than sending someone to like a generic homepage. We had a client the other day who changed their homepage and quite dramatically saw a huge drop in their conversion rate, because suddenly it wasn't about them anymore. It was a very abstract image which was put up there, which people just bounced off. We didn't really resonate with it at all. So you need to really start telling a story. You need to really be clear about what's your why. Like, what's your why, and why should your customers care about your brand? Because you have that 3 seconds. You have that 3 seconds to convince someone. And even with your ads as well, with your TikTok content, your social content, people don't want to wait for 15 seconds. They don't want to wait for you to get to the meat of it at the end. They want to know the hook up front. We talk about a lot in performance media about the importance of having that hook. It's the same with a website. Your website needs to have a hook. Your story needs to have a hook. What's that thing which is going to get someone to go like, hey, you get me. I'm going to stick around and find out more about your brand.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. The hook and the call to action. And if it doesn't have that, you've got to move on. And lately I've been reading about the upside down homepage, which is just saying, like, just get your message across at the front, all the stuff that and this is not necessarily ecom, but it's applicable. But this is maybe like my website, where you're a service offering. It's like, flip it around, get rid of all that crap. Up the top, say, subscribe to my newsletter. This is what you'll get. Here's a course. This is what you'll get. And have the call to action there, the hook and the call to action. And there's no time for fluff anymore. We're not, we're not Shakespeare telling stories. People are in a hurry. So I think great point on everything that we put out there has to have a hook. What am I going to get for my 8 seconds of reading this? What am I going to, what's your promise to me if I spend 30 seconds on your site? And then the call to action. Okay, I'm in. Where do I click? And really focused on that hook and call to action, clear in everything we do at the moment.
Absolutely. One good way is to actually have a conversation, and what I often do with our clients is actually have a chat to them about like what makes you special, and then you write it all down. And I did this the other day with a perfume client, and they were going through about what makes them special, why they were like about 40% more expensive than their competitors, and it made perfect sense. I said to her, "That's great. Where's it on your website?" He said, "Oh, it's there." It's like I couldn't see it. And it was just kind of buried little messages here and there. It wasn't consolidated. But I said, you've given me 3 really strong reasons why someone should care about you, why a luxury fragrance purchaser would care about your brand, but you've buried that information. So like you said, flip it around. Rather than having like the big sexy image and, and all this fluff at the top of your website, flip around to like a new customer landing there. What do they need to know? What do they need to know which is going to get them to go, oh, I care about this product. I want to find out more. So
there's a lot of good, there's a lot of good articles on that sort of stuff out there. And even when you're writing content for LinkedIn and so on, it's like, hey, you got to grab attention straight away and basically tell people TLDR, this is what you're going to get if you read on. But and it's funny, Mal, recently I saw a website that was really artistic and beautiful, and it might've been a restaurant or something. And I was just like, oh God, this belongs on your MySpace, and it's like I was getting agitated. What do you do? What is it? What am I booking? Am I looking? Are you selling me forks? Like what are you doing? And it's it's a shame, but it's like that's the way it is. Yeah, you can still have a beautiful website, but it has to have a hook and a CTA.
Yeah, you got to be really clear about what it is which you want customers to do when they get there. Like, what do you actually want to get out of it? And I know a lot of people point to like, some of the big brands like Lululemon or Patagonia. Had someone say, oh, I want my site to look just like that, about like Lulu, I think. Or no, actually it was Patagonia. And I'm just like, but you're not Patagonia. So you can't have it like that. You actually need to explain like why you're different. You need to have that, you need to tell your story more than Patagonia do, because everyone who goes to Patagonia's site knows what they're about. Everyone who goes to Lulu's site knows about the quality, knows about all these things. So you just can't copy the biggest fish in your pond. That's a really good
point, Mal. That's such a good point, because you do see heaps of retailers copy these big brands who have been around for generations or at least 20 years that are household names. You can't say like, oh, we do this because Prada does it. Like, hey, Prada could stick their label on a toaster, on a pair of socks. Well, they do, and they'll sell it. We've got to work a little harder than that. They know the Prada story. They're doing lots of offline stuff. So I think it's really important not to put yourself up next to those brands. And I just think brands have got to be smarter than that. Get to the point, differentiate, as you're always saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Paul, on that note, that's it. That's it for another week in e-commerce.
Yep. Okay. We'll see. We will see what next week has in store for us.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great weekend.
You too. See you, Mal.